Why do the most powerful people look like they don't care? What is it about that calm, slow, almost bored demeanor that makes others lean in, second-guess, and chase? You've seen it. The one who seems emotionally detached always seems to win. The one who doesn't react becomes the one everyone wants a reaction from. That's not luck. It's strategy. There is a force more potent than charm, louder than words, and sharper than intellect. Nonchalance. The quiet confidence of someone who needs nothing from you. The composure of a man who in chaos moves like still water. While the world scrambles for attention, approval, and validation, he simply remains. Present but not desperate. Interested but never needy. That's the power we're about to uncover. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts below, especially if you've ever been told to show more emotion or try harder, in situations where trying only made things worse. This is the video you've been waiting for, one that tells you what most are afraid to admit, that not caring too much is a form of dominance. Machiavelli didn't use the word nonchalance, but his entire philosophy breathes it. The prince, in his view, must appear merciful but be willing to be cruel. He must be feared more than loved. And above all, he must not lose his composure. Why? Because composure is control, and the one who controls himself controls the board. While others are ruled by emotion, pulled by every wind of attention and ego, the nonchalant man is a fortress. He watches, he plans, and most importantly, he never shows his hand. You think people respect you when you care too much? No. They respect you when you could care, but don't. They respect restraint, they respect silence, they respect the man who doesn't need to prove anything, because he's already convinced of his worth. That's why nonchalance is not weakness. It's the highest form of discipline. It's the art of presence without performance. The nonchalant man is not numb. He's not cold-hearted. He simply understands that emotional energy is currency. He does not spend it on fools. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't react to every insult. He doesn't beg. He doesn't chase. Because chasing destroys gravity, it makes you lighter in the eyes of others. But stillness, on the other hand, makes people orbit around you. Think about the most magnetic people you've met. They weren't the loudest. They weren't the most available. They didn't try to win you over, and that's why they did. That's the paradox. The less you try to be impressive, the more impressive you become. Because people are drawn to those who seem complete without them. Machiavelli would say that the appearance of virtue is more important than virtue itself. Translate that to nonchalance. The appearance of indifference, when carefully controlled, creates power. When you're calm, they assume you know something they don't. When you're slow to speak, they assume your words carry weight. When you're emotionally quiet, they lean in louder. Your silence becomes a mirror, and people project onto it what they hope or fear. This is the secret source of influence, letting others do the emotional work while you remain the frame, not the painting. You become the context in which others try to make sense of themselves. Nonchalance is not apathy. It's the confidence to let others come to you. It's in the way you don't double text, the way you don't rush to defend yourself, the way you can look someone in the eye and say nothing and still be heard, the way your absence is felt louder than others' presence. That is the kind of weight Machiavelli would admire. A man who needs no weapons because his energy is already a blade. This doesn't mean you never feel. It means you decide when and where to show that you do. Emotional discipline is not about suppression. It's about selection. The world is loud, chaotic, needy. But when you walk through it untouched, people turn to look. They wonder why you're not reacting, why you're not chasing, why you seem free. And freedom, my friend, is magnetic. The nonchalant man knows how to say no without emotion, how to walk away without explanation, how to stay quiet when disrespected, because responding would elevate the offender. He knows that distance is power, that mystery creates desire, and that silence, and when used with precision, can say more than 1,000 declarations. You don't attract by trying. You attract by not trying where others would beg. That's the paradox of power. Those who run toward the fire get burned, but those who stand still become the flame. Machiavelli taught that the world is not moved by the most virtuous, but by the most strategic, and in a world where everyone is told to express, to react, to overshare, nonchalance is rebellion. It is rebellion with poise. A quiet revolution against emotional slavery. The refusal to dance just because the music is loud. The refusal to argue just because you were challenged. The refusal to chase just because you were desired. You choose. And choice, more than anything, is power. When a man masters nonchalance, he doesn't lose connection, he gains leverage. His calm becomes contagious. His presence becomes a standard. People begin to question their own urgency around him. They slow down. They defer, they submit, not because he demanded it, but because his silence left no room for noise. So the next time you're tempted to prove your worth, to explain yourself, to beg for clarity, to chase validation, pause. Breathe, wait, because what you withhold becomes your power, and the less you give away emotionally, the more value others place on what little you do show. You are not here to entertain, you are not here to convince, you are not here to chase. You are here to be, fully, calmly, silently, unbothered, because, in a world burning with desperation, indifference is the throne, and the man who sits still on that throne rules without speaking a word. And so he remains, while others collapse under the weight of their own noise. Understand this: the modern world rewards the hysterical. Outrage trends, desperation sells. The loudest are heard, but the calmest are remembered. Because nonchalance is not just resistance to emotional chaos, it's a signal, a coded message to the subconscious minds of everyone watching you. It says, I am not easily moved, I am not easily impressed, I am not waiting for your approval. I approve of myself. That signal is priceless. It creates gravity. People are drawn not to the frantic, but to the fixed. The more you orbit your own center, the more others are pulled into it. It's why kings sit while others stand. It's why the alpha waits while others compete. It's why the one who appears to care least often controls the terms of every interaction. There's a reason Machiavelli admired men like Cesare Borgia, ruthless not just in action, but in restraint. Cesare didn't need to prove anything. His silence spoke louder than his army. He made men guess what he was thinking, while he calmly shaped their destinies. That is the level of power nonchalance unlocks, the ability to influence outcomes without raising your voice. Because once you truly master yourself, your impulses, your need for approval, your instinct to explain, you begin to master others. They sense that you're operating on a different frequency. You're not playing the same emotional game. While others react, you calculate. While others panic, you observe. And while others speak to be heard, you remain silent until silence hurts more than words. That's what Machiavellian power looks like. Composed, unreadable, in control. And ironically, that's what creates attraction. Romantic, social, professional. Humans crave what they don't fully understand. And the more emotionally obvious you are, the easier you are to categorize, to manipulate, to forget. But the nonchalant man, he stays undefined, and that mystique makes him unforgettable. People won't say it aloud, but deep down, everyone wants to chase someone who doesn't need them. Someone who stands alone and chooses when and if to engage. That's what gives your attention weight, not how much you give it, but how rare it is. When your emotional availability becomes a reward rather than a default, people value it more. You become the storm that doesn't need to rage to be feared. And still, the world will try to break that calm. It will provoke you, test you, taunt. You even seduce you, because your detachment threatens it. Your stillness forces others to confront their own restlessness. Your refusal to dance to their tempo reveals just how noisy they really are. But you don't need to fight. You don't need to convince. You just need to hold your center. That is the essence of nonchalance, and it is brutal in its simplicity. It's not something you act out. It's something you become. Not a mask, not a tactic, not a persona, but a state of being, emotionally independent, strategically silent, unshakably still. And once you arrive at that state, something incredible happens. People begin to offer you what they never gave you before: their respect, their curiosity, their admiration, and often their submission. Not because you asked, not because you insisted, but because your energy made them question their own. Because in a world of men trying to prove themselves, you didn't need to. That is the real flex. That is the Machiavellian art of not caring. Not because nothing matters, but because not everything deserves your fire. And that's the difference between noise and power. You don't scream, you don't chase, you don't flinch, you just exist. And watch the world tilt in your direction. And the world does tilt. Not because you force it, but because everything that is grounded becomes a point of reference, and you, in your nonchalance, become the axis. The calm at the center of the storm, the fixed star in a sky of erratic comets. While others rush to be liked, to be seen, to be followed, you sit still, and suddenly they move around you. They orbit, they analyze, they fantasize. This is the reversal of modern weakness. Everyone is broadcasting, bleeding, oversharing, screaming for relevance, but the nonchalant man understands a deeper truth. Mystery is magnetic. It's not the man who posts every hour that captivates. It's the man who vanishes for weeks and returns unchanged, untouched, and somehow even more composed than before, because nothing commands more attention than a man who doesn't crave it. And Machiavelli would nod at this with a knowing smile, because he understood that control is never loud, power is never frantic. True power moves like shadow. It wraps itself in mystery, speaks in riddles, and always holds something back. The prince does not announce his next move. He acts. He lets others fill in the blanks, and in those blanks, fear, awe, and fascination are born. Look at history. Look at the rulers, the generals, the thinkers who stood above the rest, not the ones who burned out in passionate outbursts, the ones who sat still, calculating. Napoleon didn't panic in front of his troops. He radiated certainty. Marcus Aurelius, even as an emperor, spent more time in silence than speech. Julius Caesar was often silent in council, observing, letting others speak, until the moment his words would cut deeper than any sword. And Machiavelli, chronicling them all, saw a pattern. The man who speaks last rules first. And in modern times, the principle hasn't changed. You walk into a room and say nothing, and yet everyone notices. Why? Because silence creates space. And in that space, people project power, intrigue, danger, sex, strength, all because you gave them nothing to cling to. You became a mirror, and mirrors don't chase. This is the deepest level of nonchalance, the art of letting people wonder, letting them write the script in their heads. You offer no confirmations, no denials, you just exist, and in doing so, you gain leverage, because of the unknown is always stronger than the predictable. People try to study you, understand you, decode you, but the more they try, the less they know. Because you give them nothing but presence, a still, calm, grounded presence that doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, and never apologizes for being whole. That's why nonchalance is so threatening, because it reveals how fragile most people are. It exposes their dependency on external reactions, their need for attention, their hunger for validation. When they poke you and you don't move, they feel powerless, because your stillness mirrors their chaos. And that is unbearable to those who haven't mastered themselves, so they'll label you cold, arrogant, detached, emotionless. Let them. Because you know what they don't, that their accusations are just reflections of their discomfort. Their need for your emotional reaction is proof of your control, and your refusal to give it, that's the checkmate. That's the silence that roars louder than any defense. You don't need to explain who you are. You show it by not reacting, by choosing stillness over spectacle, by making presence your language and detachment your crown. And once you wear that crown, you'll notice how the world begins to treat you differently. The way people speak to you, watch you, even wait for your attention. It all changes. You become rare. And anything rare becomes valuable, but only if you protect it. Because the moment you slip, the moment you over-explain, chase, or plead, the illusion collapses. And that's the key. Nonchalance is not an act. It is a discipline. You live it. You become it. Even when your ego wants to scream, even when your pride wants to prove a point, even when your emotions beg you to fight, to fix, to chase. You don't. You observe. You pause. You let the silence stretch. Because you know, the first to flinch loses. And so you walk, not faster, not louder, not angrier, just slower. As if time bends around you, because it does. When you've mastered the art of not reacting, you've mastered the art of bending reality. You no longer chase outcomes. Outcomes begin to chase you. People offer what you never asked for. Apologies arrive that you never demanded. Invitations come that you never sought. Doors open because your silence made them curious, and curiosity is more powerful than persuasion. Machiavelli understood this game. He knew that in every interaction, power is negotiated silently before a single word is spoken. Posture, gaze. Presence, emotional economy. The one who speaks calmly commands the storm. The one who walks away owns the frame. The one who doesn't flinch becomes the mirror that shatters everyone else's illusion. Nonchalance, then, is not a shield. It is a sword made of ice. It cuts without moving, it kills without noise, it wins without showing its blade. And those who witness it, they never forget the chill, because nothing is more unforgettable than someone who stayed quiet when everyone else was trying to be heard. So now the choice is yours. Do you keep playing the game of reaction, explanation, validation, or do you stop chasing, stop flinching, stop caring, and watch how the world begins to lean in? The man who moves last moves best, and the man who needs nothing is the one they all chase. Remember that. Now, stay still, and let them come to you.